The rejection ceremony had ended 3 hours ago, but Sarah Vale still knelt in the center of the Moonspire Temple, her knees numb against the cold marble floor. Around her, the sacred candles had burned down to stubs, their wax pooling like frozen tears. The other Omegas, all 7 of them, had been claimed before the first candle even flickered. Alphas and betas alike had stepped forward, drawn by compatible sense, promising futures, or simple attraction. No one had stepped forward for Sarah. Broken Omega, she'd heard them whisper. Defective. It wasn't her face. She knew that much. Her reflection showed clear skin, dark eyes the color of aged whiskey, and hair that fell in waves of burnished copper. It wasn't her body either. At 23, she was healthy, strong from years of working in her family's forge. It was her scent. Or rather, the lack of it. Every Omega produced a signature scent during their presentation year, something that called to compatible mates. Sarah's scent had never developed. To wolves who relied on scent for everything, she might as well have been invisible. "You should go home, child." Maven Gray's weathered voice echoed through the empty temple. The elderly Omega approached with a walking stick, her silver hair gleaming in the candlelight. "Kneeling here won't change what the moon has decided." "I thought someone would claim me," Sarah said, her voice rough from hours of silence. "Perhaps the moon has other plans for you," Maven said, settling onto the stone bench nearby. Sarah finally rose, wincing as blood rushed back into her legs. Through the temple's open doors, she could see Starhaven's glittering lights in the distance. The capital city looked like fallen stars scattered across the valley, beautiful and utterly unreachable for someone like her. "Miss Vale?" The voice came from the temple's shadowed entrance, male, deep, with an odd roughness to it. Sarah turned, squinting into the darkness. A figure emerged into the candlelight. The man was tall, but he moved with a painful limp, his left leg dragging slightly with each step. He leaned heavily on a worn wooden cane, his shoulders hunched as if the effort of walking caused considerable pain. His clothes were simple, a dark wool coat that had seen better days, plain trousers, and scuffed but well-maintained boots. His face was partially obscured by an overgrown beard and shaggy dark hair that fell past his collar, but his eyes, even in the dim light, they were startling. Silver gray, like moonlight on still water. "I apologize for the intrusion," he said, his voice strained. "I was told I might find an Omega here, one who might be willing to consider an unusual arrangement." Maven Gray had gone very still, her sharp eyes fixed on the stranger with an unreadable expression. "The ceremony is over," Sarah said, trying to keep the bitterness from her voice. "All the Omegas have been claimed." "All?" The stranger's gaze moved over her deliberately. "Forgive me, but you appear to still be here?" Heat flooded Sarah's cheeks. "I wasn't claimed." "I see." He took another painful step forward. "Then perhaps you would hear my proposal. I need an Omega willing to accept a marriage of convenience, someone who won't ask too many questions about my condition. In return, I can offer you a home, protection, and freedom from the shame of rejection." Sarah stared at him. "You're offering to marry a stranger out of pity?" "Not pity. Necessity. I have my reasons for needing an Omega wife, and you have your reasons for wanting to avoid returning home in disgrace. We could help each other." "This is madness. I don't even know your name." The stranger shifted his weight, wincing with obvious pain. "My name is Kier. I live in the Thornvale territories. I can provide references if you require them, though I'll admit my circumstances are humble." Every logical part of her brain screamed to refuse, but then she thought of the pity she'd face, of spending the rest of her life as the broken Omega nobody wanted. "What exactly would you expect from this arrangement?" she asked carefully. "A wife in name." Someone to maintain the household, to present as my mate to the outside world. Beyond that, I would expect nothing you weren't willing to freely give. Maven Gray rose from her bench. Child, perhaps you should think— I accept, Sarah said. The words fell into silence like stones into deep water. Kier's eyes widened slightly and something powerful flickered in those silver depths, something that didn't match the weak, broken body before her. Then we have an agreement, he said, extending his hand. Sarah took his hand, expecting it to be soft and weak. Instead, his palm was calloused and warm, his grip surprisingly strong. The moment their skin touched, something electric jolted up her arm, making her gasp. Kier released her hand immediately. Forgive me. The cold makes my hands rough. But Sarah's pulse raced, because she'd felt something in that touch. For just an instant she could have sworn she'd sensed a scent. Not smelled it exactly, but felt its essence. Pine and winter frost and something wild and untamed that made her Omega instincts sit up and pay attention. But that was impossible. He was human, or as close to it as made no difference. Crippled, weak, probably dying from whatever illness had left him in this state. Wasn't he? We should leave before dawn, Kier said, already turning toward the door with his painful, dragging gait. I have a cart waiting beyond the city gates. Sarah watched him limp away, her hand still tingling from his touch. Maven Gray moved beside her, her voice dropping to a whisper. Trust your instincts, child, not your fears. The moon has plans you cannot yet see. What do you mean? Sarah whispered back. But the elderly Omega just shook her head, a strange smile playing at her lips. As Sarah gathered her few belongings and followed the limping stranger out into the night, she couldn't shake the feeling that she'd just made either the best or worst decision of her entire life. The cart creaked ominously with every rut in the road, and the single horse pulling it looked as weathered as its owner. Sarah sat beside Kier as dawn broke over the Valdrin countryside, painting the sky in shades of rose and gold. She'd sent word through a temple messenger explaining she'd found a match after all. You're very quiet, Kier observed, handling the reins with surprising dexterity. I'm trying to figure out if I've lost my mind, Sarah admitted. A low sound came from his throat. It might have been a laugh. A fair assessment. Why did you offer marriage to a stranger? She studied his profile in the growing light. Kier was silent for a long moment. There are expectations in my territory. Social obligations that require a certain presentation. A man of my age without a mate raises questions I'd rather not answer. Questions about what? About whether I'm capable of fulfilling my duties. His knuckles tightened on the reins. People make assumptions about disability. Sarah felt an unexpected pang of sympathy. She understood assumptions. And what about you? Kier asked. Besides avoiding the shame of rejection, what made you accept? Maybe I wanted to prove I wasn't completely unwanted, she said quietly. Even if it's just pretend. It's not pretend. The intensity in his voice made her look at him sharply. By law and custom, you're my mate now. That's as real as it gets. The cart lurched over a deep rut. Kier's cane fell and clattered to the floorboards. He reached for it with his right hand while controlling the horse with his left, and for a moment, his whole body twisted in a way that should have been agony for someone with his injuries. But he didn't cry out, didn't even wince. He just smoothly retrieved the cane as if nothing had happened. Sarah's eyes narrowed. She'd seen truly disabled people before. Every movement was calculated, painful, limited. But that twist, that reach, it had been fluid, natural. How did you injure yourself? She asked. Kier's jaw tightened. An accident, years ago. The details are unpleasant. You're my husband now. Or did you want a wife who doesn't ask questions? That sound again. Definitely a laugh this time. I'm beginning to realize that. The forest grew thicker around them as they left the main road. Thornvale Woods lived up to their name. Massive thorn bushes grew between ancient trees, creating natural barriers. When the cottage came into view, Sarah realized it was completely isolated. It was larger than she'd expected. 2 stories of dark wood and stone, with a covered porch and actual glass windows. "You call this humble?" she asked. "It's old. Been in the family for generations." He pulled the cart to a stop and began climbing down from the driver's bench, his movements stiff and pained. But when he approached the porch stairs, 5 of them, steep and narrow, he climbed them with barely a pause, his supposedly injured leg bearing impossible weight. "Those stairs," Sarah began. "I've lived here a long time," he said quickly. "You learn to adapt." The interior was nothing like she'd expected. Well-crafted furniture, clean floors, and a massive stone fireplace. But what caught her attention was the space. High ceilings, wide doorways, as if built for someone much larger. "The bedroom is upstairs. You'll take it. I'll sleep down here." "I can't take your bed." "I insist." His tone left no room for argument. "The stairs are difficult for me at night." Another lie, Sarah thought. She'd just watched him climb the porch stairs without issue. "There's a well out back, and the village is about an hour's walk if you need supplies. You're free to come and go as you please." He limped toward a room off the main hall, his gait more pronounced. "I need to rest." The journey was taxing. Make yourself at home. Sarah spent the afternoon exploring. The doorways were wider than necessary. The furniture was pushed against the walls. And in the bedroom, she found scratches on the wooden floor, deep gouges that looked almost like claw marks. As evening fell, she prepared a simple meal. She knocked on Kier's door to tell him dinner was ready, but received only a muffled response that he wasn't hungry. Sarah ate alone, the silence pressing in around her. She was washing dishes when she heard it, a howl, long and mournful, echoing through the forest. Then another, closer, and another. Wolves. Sarah moved to the window, peering into the darkness. The moon was rising, nearly full, its light turning the clearing silver. And there, at the edge of the trees, she saw them, dozens of glowing eyes watching the house. Her chest tightened. She should be terrified. But the wolves didn't approach. They just sat there, silent and still, as if waiting for something. Or guarding something. A floorboard creaked behind her. Sarah spun around. Kier stood in the doorway, and in the moonlight streaming through the window, she saw something that made her blood run cold. His eyes weren't silver anymore. They glowed with inhuman light, bright and fierce, reflecting the moonlight like an animal's. "Sarah," he said, and his voice was different, deeper, rougher, carrying a resonance that made her omega instinct snap to attention. "You should go upstairs. Now." "Your eyes," she whispered. "What?" "Please." The word came out strained, almost desperate. "Just trust me and go upstairs. Lock the door. Don't come out until morning no matter what you hear." The wolves outside began to howl in earnest now, a chorus that raised every hair on Sarah's body. And Kier, or whoever he really was, stood before her with luminous eyes and barely controlled power radiating off him in waves. "What are you?" she breathed. His jaw clenched, fighting something. When he spoke, each word seemed forced. "I'm trying very hard to keep you safe. But if you don't go upstairs right now, I'm not sure I can." Sarah backed toward the stairs, never taking her eyes off him. His otherworldly gaze tracked her movement, and she saw his hands clenching and unclenching. He wasn't leaning on his cane anymore, wasn't limping. He stood perfectly straight, perfectly balanced, radiating coiled strength. Who are you really? She asked from the bottom step. Kier's mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. Go to bed, Sarah. We'll talk in the morning, I promise. Will you still be you in the morning? I'm always me, he said softly. That's the problem. Sarah fled up the stairs. She locked the bedroom door just as the howling outside reached a crescendo. Through the window, she could see wolves flooding into the clearing, dozens of them, moving like liquid shadow. And then she heard it, a sound from downstairs that couldn't possibly be human. A howl, deep and powerful and commanding, that made every wolf outside immediately fall silent. Sarah pressed her hands against the window. The wolves were bowing, actually pressing their bodies to the ground in submission. And somewhere below her, something howled again with a voice that spoke of wildness and power. Sarah slid down to sit on the floor, her back against the wall. She'd married a cripple, a weak, broken man who needed a wife for appearance's sake. Except he wasn't crippled, wasn't weak, wasn't anything he'd claimed to be. As the night stretched on and the wolves kept their silent vigil, Sarah realized she'd walked willingly into something she didn't understand. The only question was whether it was a cage or a sanctuary. She had until morning to decide. Sarah didn't sleep. She sat with her back against the locked door, listening to the sounds of the house settling, the wolves outside, and the creaking floorboards below. As dawn broke, the wolves vanished back into the forest. The house fell quiet. Sarah waited another hour before unlocking the door and descending the stairs. Kier sat at the kitchen table, his cane propped beside him, looking for all the world like the broken man who'd offered her marriage. But Sarah had seen behind the mask. Coffee? He offered, his voice back to that rough, strained quality. Answers, Sarah said, staying near the stairs. I want answers. Kier sighed and set down his cup. I suppose the charade couldn't last forever. The wolves wouldn't have hurt you. They were there to protect you from me, in case the moon madness took me and I forgot myself. Sarah's mind whirled. Moon madness, the wolves bowing, his glowing eyes. You're a werewolf. We prefer shifter, but yes. Kier met her gaze steadily. Alpha bloodline, to be specific. The world tilted. Sarah gripped the stair railing. That's not possible. Shifters are myths. Are they? Kier stood, smoothly, without the cane, without any hint of disability. Then what did you see last night, Sarah? She had no answer. Kier crossed the room, stopping a careful distance away. The Cripple Act was necessary. If I'd come to that temple as myself, whole, healthy, clearly alpha, you would have known something was wrong. The words stung. So this was all a trick? You lied about everything. Not everything. His voice softened. I do need a mate, Sarah. Desperately, but not for the reasons I told you. Then why? Kier hesitated, genuine vulnerability crossing his features. Because I'm the Alpha King of Valdrin. Sarah laughed. She couldn't help it. Right. And I'm the moon goddess herself. I'm serious. Kier ran a hand through his hair. My name isn't Kier. It's Kieran Ashford. I rule the Silverstone Pack and all the territories under its protection. 6 months ago, the council informed me that if I don't take a mate by the next full moon, they'll declare me unfit and choose a new king. Sarah's laughter died. The weight in his words, the resignation in his eyes. This was truth. But why the disguise? Would they? Kieran's expression turned bitter. Or would they want the crown, the power, the prestige? I've spent 5 years watching Omegas parade themselves before me, each one calculating what they could gain. None of them wanted me. They wanted what I represented. So you thought a rejected Omega with no scent would be different? I thought she would have no reason to lie about her intentions. He stepped closer, and Sarah sensed that scent again. Pine and winter frost and wild things. I thought maybe I could find someone who would see me as more than a crown. Sarah's pulse quickened. You're insane. This whole plan is insane. Probably. But it's done now. You're my mate by law. The ceremony is binding. Then I'll unbind it. Sarah moved toward the door. I'll go to the temple. Tell them you lied. You can't. Kieran's words stopped her. Shifter mating laws are different. The moment you agreed in that temple, the moment we touched, the bond began forming. What bond? The mate bond. Kieran's gaze took on an otherworldful glow for just a moment. You felt it when we touched, didn't you? That jolt of electricity? Sarah's hand moved unconsciously to her chest, where she'd felt that strange warmth. That was just static. It was recognition. Kieran closed the distance between them. Your Omega recognized my Alpha, even though you have no scent. Do you know how rare that is? I don't care how rare it is. Sarah backed against the door. You lied to me. Neither are you. Kieran's gaze bore into hers. An Omega with no scent shouldn't trigger an Alpha's recognition. It shouldn't be possible. But you did it anyway. Why? I don't know. Last night, when the moon rose, I felt it. Your call. Kieran's voice dropped to a rough whisper. Every Alpha in 100 miles felt it. That's why my pack surrounded the house. They came to see the Omega who could call to the king without even trying. Sarah shook her head. No. I don't have that kind of power. I'm broken. Or hidden. Kieran reached out slowly and traced a finger along her jawline. Sarah gasped as that electric sensation sparked between them. What if your lack of scent wasn't a flaw? What if it was protection? A way to hide something too powerful for anyone to notice? You're talking nonsense. But even as she said it, Sarah remembered strange things, the way animals always came to her. The time she'd stopped wild dogs from attacking with just a word. The dreams she'd had every full moon since she was 12. Dreams that felt more like memories, of running through forests with the wind in her fur. Am I? Kieran's hand cupped her cheek, his irises shifting to molten gold. Then explain why every wolf in Thornvale Woods knows your name now. Why they're waiting for you to emerge so they can swear loyalty to their new Luna. I'm not... The denial died as Kieran's thumb brushed across her lower lip, sending a shiver through her. You are. Whether you knew it or not. The moon doesn't make mistakes, Sarah. Sarah jerked away from his touch. This was too much. Too fast. Yesterday she'd been a rejected Omega. Today she was supposedly the mate of an Alpha King. I need air, she gasped, fumbling with the door. Sarah, wait. But she was already outside, stumbling into the clearing. The morning sun was warm, the forest air crisp. She could breathe out here, except she wasn't alone. Wolves emerged from the tree line, not threatening, but reverent. They approached slowly, heads bowed, making soft whining sounds. Oh no, Sarah whispered. The largest wolf, a massive creature with silver-gray fur and knowing amber eyes, padded forward. It paused, as if asking permission. When Sarah didn't retreat, it lowered itself to the ground before her and nudged her hand with its massive head. The touch sent that same electric warmth through her, and for just a moment she felt connected. To the wolf, to the forest, to Kieran standing on the porch with his heart in his eyes. This isn't happening. Like a Luna, Kieran said from the porch, like a queen. Sarah stared at the wolves, then at Kieran, then at her trembling hands. I don't know how to be a queen. Neither did I, when I started. But I learned. And you will too, if you choose to stay. And if I don't? Then I'll release you from the bond. The words clearly cost him. It will be painful, and the council will likely remove me from power, but I won't keep you prisoner. You deserve a choice, Sarah. A real one, now that you know the truth. The silver wolf whined softly and nudged Sarah's hand again. The touch sent warmth through her, and for just a moment she felt it. The connection to the wolf, to the forest, to Kieran. I need time, she said finally, to think, to process this. Of course. Take all the time you need. I want the truth. All of it. Sarah met his gaze steadily. No more lies. If we're really bonded, then I need to know everything. Hope flickered in Kieran's features. Everything. I promise. The silver wolf rose and padded back to the forest, the others following. But Sarah could feel their presence just beyond the trees, protecting their Luna, whether she'd accepted the role or not. Sarah turned back to Kieran. Start at the beginning. Tell me everything about this bond, about what I'm supposed to be. Kieran descended the porch steps. Smoothly, gracefully, every inch the powerful alpha he'd been hiding. When he stood before her, he smiled. You're not broken, Sarah. You never were. His hand found hers, and this time she didn't pull away. And that's exactly where our story begins. As they stood in the clearing, Sarah realized she'd reached a crossroads. She could run, try to escape and return to her simple life of shame. Or she could stay, face the truth about herself, about Kieran, about whatever the moon goddess had planned. Sarah looked into Kieran's wolf-bright eyes and made her choice. Everything, she repeated, and then we figure out what comes next. Together? Kieran asked, vulnerability beneath the word. Together, Sarah agreed. For better or worse, the bond had begun, and there was no going back now. And deep in her chest, in a place Sarah had never paid attention to before, something stirred. A power, a presence, beginning to stir from ancient sleep. They sat at the kitchen table as Kieran explained everything. The Silverstone Pack's ancient lineage, the Council's ultimatum, the enemies circling his throne. There's a rival alpha, Kieran said. Darius Crow. He leads the ironclad pack in the Northern Territories. For years he's been challenging my authority, spreading rumors that I'm unfit to rule because I refuse to take a mate. Why did you refuse? Surely there were suitable Omegas. Hundreds. Kieran's jaw tightened. All vetted by the Council, approved by advisors, positioned to strengthen alliances. And every single one looked at me and saw a crown, not a person. Sarah understood that feeling. So you decided to find someone who wanted nothing from you. Someone who couldn't want anything from me. A rejected Omega with no pack, no status, no political connections. Which is exactly why you chose me. I'm your rebellion. You're my choice. Kieran's eyes met hers with fierce intensity. That's more than any king has had in 5 generations. A knock at the door made them both tense. His entire demeanor shifted, shoulders hunched, expression pained, and when he reached for his cane, the transformation back to Kier was seamless. That will be Torin, my beta. One of the few who knows the truth. Sarah opened the door to a tall, broad-shouldered man with dark skin and sharp eyes. He wore fine clothes, tailored jacket, polished boots, that spoke of wealth. His gaze swept over Sarah before he bowed slightly. Luna, he said, and the title jolted through her. I'm Torin Blackwood, the king's second. He stopped abruptly. You're the one? How is that possible without a scent? Apparently, the moon has a sense of humor, Sarah said. Torin stepped inside, immediately positioning himself between Kieran and any potential threat, a bodyguard's instinct. My king, The council has called an emergency session. Darius has made another move. Kieran's facade slipped, his eyes blazing with barely controlled rage. What did he do? He's challenged the validity of your mating. He's claiming that a union without the council's approval cannot be legitimate, and that marrying a rejected Omega proves you're unfit to rule. Sarah's throat constricted. He knows? Already? Darius has spies everywhere. The moment you left Starhaven together, word began spreading. Let them talk, Kieran said, his voice hardening. The mating is legal and binding. He's doing more than talking. Torin pulled a folded parchment from his jacket. He's demanded a formal presentation. You must bring your mate before the council and the assembled packs within 3 days, or he'll call for a vote of no confidence. Sarah felt her hands begin to tremble. A presentation? In front of everyone? It's pack law, Torin explained gently. When an alpha of royal blood takes a mate, she must be formally recognized by the council and the major pack leaders. Which I'll obviously fail. I can't even produce a proper Omega scent. By being yourself, Kieran said, but even he didn't sound convinced. Torin cleared his throat. There's more. Darius has brought his own candidate, an Omega named Ilara Voss from the Ironclad Pack. Highborn, beautiful, with a scent that apparently affected half the unmated alphas in the Northern Territories. Of course he did, Kieran muttered. This isn't about tradition. It's about power. Everything is about power, Torin agreed, and right now, Darius thinks he has it. After Torin left with instructions to prepare for the journey to Starhaven, Sarah retreated to the bedroom. She was staring out the window when Kieran knocked softly. May I come in? It's your house? It's your room. He entered, dropping the pretense of the cane. Sarah, I know this is overwhelming. Overwhelming? She spun to face him. I went from rejected Omega to Queen in less than 2 days, and now I have to stand before a council of alphas who already think I'm worthless. That's not overwhelming, Kieran. That's impossible. You're right. It is impossible. Which is why we're not going to play by their rules. What do you mean? Kieran's eyes gleamed. Darius wants a traditional presentation because he knows you'll fail by traditional standards. But what if we change the game entirely? How? The mate bond. If we can prove it's genuine, not just political convenience but actual recognition, then it won't matter that you have no scent. The bond supersedes everything else. Sarah's blood rushed in her ears. But the bond takes time to develop. We barely know each other. Usually, yes, but ours isn't usual. You felt it immediately, and so did I. That kind of instant recognition is rare, Sarah. Legendary, even. If we can demonstrate that to the council, they'll have to accept it. But how do we demonstrate something like that? There are tests. Traditional rituals to prove a bond's authenticity. The problem is, they're intimate. They require a level of trust that most mates don't have after only 2 days. The way he said intimate made Sarah's face heat. What kind of tests? Scent sharing, where mates exchange scents so they can find each other anywhere. Bond speaking, the ability to communicate directly. And he hesitated. The claiming. The claiming, Sarah repeated slowly. That sounds ominous. It's when an alpha marks his Omega and she marks him in return. It's permanent, irreversible, and it links your lives together in ways that go far beyond a simple marriage. Kieran's voice was carefully neutral. It's also the most powerful proof of a genuine bond. Sarah's hand unconsciously went to her neck, where she knew an alpha's mark would be placed. And you're suggesting we do this? All of it? In 4 days? I'm suggesting we do whatever you're comfortable with. If you want to walk away right now, I'll find a way to protect you. If you want to go through with the presentation but refuse the claiming, I'll respect that too. This is your choice, Sarah. She studied his face, looking for manipulation, but all she saw was genuine concern and hope. What do you want? She asked. Honestly? Kieran was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough with emotion. I want what I've wanted since the moment I saw you in that temple, looking so fierce despite your rejection. I want a real mate, Sarah. Someone who chooses me not because of my crown or my power, but because we fit together. We barely know each other. Then let's fix that. Kieran held out his hand. 4 days. Give me 4 days to prove the moon didn't make a mistake. If at the end you still want to leave, I'll let you go. But if there's even a chance this bond is real. His amber eyes glowed softly. Don't we owe it to ourselves to find out? Sarah stared at his outstretched hand, remembering the electric jolt of their first touch. Every logical part of her screamed to refuse, but she'd been running her whole life, running from the whispers, from the pitying looks, from the certainty that she was broken. What if Kieran was right? What if her lack of scent hadn't been a flaw, but a protection? There was only one way to find out. Sarah placed her hand in his, feeling that now familiar spark. 4 days. But I have conditions. Name them. No more lies. No more pretending. Done. And if I decide to leave after the presentation, you let me go. No consequences. Kieran's jaw tightened, but he nodded. You have my word. Not as king. As Kieran. As the man who asked me to take a chance on him. A shift crossed his features. Vulnerability, gratitude, fierce protectiveness. As Kieran, he agreed, you have my word as myself, not my crown. Then we have a deal. Sarah squeezed his hand. Teach me how to be a Luna. Kieran's answering smile was devastating. The lessons start now. Because if we're going to convince the council our bond is real, we need to make it real. And that means breaking down every wall between us. How do we do that? By sharing everything. Kieran tugged her gently toward the door. Starting with the truth about who you really are. I'm nobody. A rejected Omega Dash quote. No. Kieran's voice was firm. That's what they told you. But I felt your call last night. I felt the power in it. You're not nobody. You're something the shifter world hasn't seen in generations. And it's time to figure out exactly what that is. As they descended the stairs together, hands still linked, Sarah realized she was standing at the edge of something vast and terrifying, and possibly wonderful. 4 days to discover the truth about herself, about Kieran, about the bond humming between them. 4 days to decide if she was brave enough to become the queen a broken Omega was never supposed to be. Outside, the wolves began to howl, not in warning, but in anticipation, as if they knew something was beginning. Close your eyes, Kieran instructed. They stood in the clearing behind the house, the afternoon sun filtering through the trees. Sarah felt ridiculous, but she obeyed. Now, tell me what you sense. I sense that this is a waste of time. Stop thinking about what you can't do. Just feel. The bond is already there, Sarah. Sarah took a deep breath and tried to relax. At first, there was nothing. Just the normal sounds of the forest, the warmth of the sun. Then, slowly, something else emerged. A presence, warm and powerful, that seemed to pulse in rhythm with her own heartbeat. She could feel Kieran even with her eyes closed, could sense exactly where he stood. I feel you, she whispered, wonder coloring her voice. Good. Now push further. Sarah reached out with this strange new awareness, and suddenly the world exploded into sensation. She could sense the wolves in the forest, dozens of them, each one distinct. She could feel the ancient trees, the small creatures hiding in the undergrowth, the very earth humming with life. "Oh," she gasped, "this is overwhelming." "I know. But you're doing remarkably well." Sarah opened her eyes, and for a moment, everything looked different. Sharper, brighter, more alive. She could see golden threads of magic connecting her to Kiran, could see the silver light that seemed to emanate from the forest. "What's happening to me?" "You're awakening. Whatever was suppressing your true nature is breaking down. The bond is accelerating the process." "But I'm human. I don't have shifter blood." "Are you sure about that?" Kiran tilted his head, studying her. "Your parents, were they both from Ashenmere?" Sarah thought back. "My father was. My mother. I don't remember much about her. She died when I was very young." "What do you remember?" "Just fragments. She had red hair like mine, and eyes that supposedly changed color in the moonlight. My father never talked about her after she died." "Sarah." Kiran's voice was urgent. "What if she wasn't human? What if she was a shifter in hiding?" "That's impossible. Think about it. A powerful Omega, maybe from a royal bloodline, running from something. She suppresses her nature, hides in a human settlement, meets your father and starts over. It would explain everything. Your lack of scent, your hidden power, the way every shifter instinct in me screams that you're extraordinary." Sarah's head spun. "You're saying my mother was a shifter, and I'm a hybrid?" "I'm saying you're something rare, maybe even unique. A dormant shifter with Omega blood so powerful it had to be hidden." Before Sarah could process this, a howl split the air. Urgent, warning. The wolves that had been keeping a respectful distance suddenly burst into the clearing, and Torin appeared moments later, his expression grim. "My king, we have a problem. Alara Voss has arrived in Thornvale. She's brought half the ironclad pack with her, and she's demanding to meet Sarah." "Demanding?" Kiran's voice went cold with authority. "On what grounds?" "She claims the right of challenge. She wants to prove to the kingdom that she's the superior Omega, the one truly worthy of being Luna." Sarah's stomach nodded. "She wants to challenge me?" "You're my mate," Kiran said firmly. "That makes you Luna. But you don't have to accept. I can refuse on your behalf." "Which would make me look weak," Sarah realized. "Which is exactly what Darius wants." Torin nodded reluctantly. The optics would be unfortunate. Sarah looked between the two men, then out at the wolves surrounding them. 2 days ago, she'd been nobody. Now she was expected to defend her right to a crown she still wasn't sure she wanted. But as she stood there, feeling the bond humming between her and Kiran, feeling the strange new power stirring in her blood, something shifted. "I'll meet her," Sarah said, steadiness in her voice surprising even herself. "When and where?" Kiran studied her face. "You don't have to do this." "Yes, I do. If I'm going to stand before the council in 3 days, I need to prove, to them and to myself, that I belong there. This Alara thinks I'm an easy target because I have no scent, no status. Maybe that'll work in our favor." A slow smile spread across Kiran's face. "You continue to surprise me, Sarah Vale." "Good. Keep being surprised." The meeting was set for sunset at the Moon Spire, neutral ground on the outskirts of Starhaven. As Torin left to make arrangements, Kiran pulled Sarah aside. "There are rules to an Omega challenge. No claws, no teeth, no shifting. It's meant to be a test of dominance and will, not combat." "But she's a trained Omega from a powerful pack. And I'm whatever I am?" "By remembering what I told you." Kiran took both her hands. "You're not broken, Sarah. You're hidden. And when you stand before her, when you let even a fraction of your true power show, she's going to feel it. They all will." And if I can't? Then we'll deal with it together. Kieran pulled her close. You're not alone anymore, Sarah. Whatever happens, I'm with you. Always. The sincerity in his voice, the warmth of his embrace, it all felt so real that Sarah almost forgot this had started as a political arrangement. Kieran, she whispered against his chest, I'm scared. Good. It means you're smart. But fear doesn't mean weakness, Sarah. Sometimes it means you're brave enough to do what terrifies you. The journey to the Moonspire took several hours. When they arrived, the temple was already crowded. Half of Thornvale had turned out to witness the challenge. And there, standing in the center of the temple, was Alara Voss. She was everything Sarah wasn't. Tall, elegant, with golden hair that cascaded down her back and eyes the color of amber. She wore a gown that probably cost more than an entire village. Her presence seemed to fill the room, and Sarah noticed how every male shifter present turned toward her unconsciously, drawn by something Sarah couldn't perceive. So you're the broken Omega, Alara said, her voice dripping with false sympathy. The one who thinks she can be Luna of Valdrin. How ambitious. Sarah felt every eye turn to her. For a moment the old fear rose up, the certainty that she was broken, worthless. Then Kieran's hand found hers, and she felt his absolute faith. Not in some fantasy of who she might become, but in who she was right now. Ambitious, Sarah repeated, stepping forward. Yes, I suppose I am. Though I prefer to think of it as refusing to let anyone else tell me what I'm worth. Alara's smile sharpened. Then let's see what you're worth, shall we? I challenge you, Sarah Vale, for the position of Luna. Do you accept? The temple fell silent. Sarah looked at Kieran one last time. He nodded, trust and pride shining in his eyes. She turned back to Alara, lifted her chin, and spoke words that would change everything. I accept. Maven Grey stepped forward to officiate, her ancient voice carrying through the temple. An Omega challenge has been issued and accepted. The rules are thus: no shifting, no claws, no bloodshed. This is a test of will, dominance, and the strength of one's Omega spirit. The first to submit or retreat loses. Do both parties understand? I understand, Alara said, her amber eyes gleaming with confidence. I understand, Sarah echoed, though her pulse quickened. Then let the challenge begin. The crowd moved back, forming a circle around them. Kieran retreated to the edge, but Sarah could feel him, steady, unwavering, believing in her even when she didn't believe in herself. Alara circled her slowly, like a predator assessing prey. I almost feel sorry for you. You have no idea what you've gotten yourself into. Darius warned me you'd be easy to break. Darius sent you to do his dirty work? Sarah asked, trying to keep her voice steady. How flattering for you. Alara's expression flickered with annoyance. He sent me to prove what everyone already knows, that you're not worthy of being Luna, that Kieran's judgment is impaired if he chose someone as defective as you. The word stung, even though Sarah had heard it 1,000 times before. Defective, broken, wrong. Your move, Alara said, spreading her arms. Show me this Omega power you supposedly possess. Sarah stood frozen. She had no idea what she was supposed to do. In traditional Omega challenges, participants released their sense to establish dominance, used their natural allure to make the other submit. But Sarah had none of that. She felt Kieran's voice in her mind, not words exactly, but feeling. Stop thinking. Just feel. Sarah closed her eyes, remembering what she'd felt in the clearing. The warmth, the connection, the sense of being part of something vast and ancient. She reached for it now, that power she'd touched so briefly, and something answered. It started as warmth in her chest, spreading outward like ripples in a pond. When Sarah opened her eyes, the temple looked different, sharper, brighter. She could see threads of light connecting every shifter present, could observe the way Ilara's presence seemed to create a golden haze in the air around her, visible to Sarah's new awareness even if she couldn't smell it herself. But there was something else too. A presence, ancient and powerful, that seemed to radiate from Sarah herself. It wasn't a scent exactly. It was something deeper, more primal. It spoke not to the nose but to the very soul. Ilara's confident expression faltered. "What are you doing?" Sarah didn't answer. She took a step forward, and the presence intensified. Around the temple she heard gasps, felt the crowd's attention sharpen with surprise, and something that looked almost like fear. "Impossible," Ilara whispered. "You have no scent. You're nothing." "Am I?" Sarah's voice came out different, layered, as if multiple voices spoke at once. She took another step, and Ilara retreated. Or did everyone just assume I was nothing because they couldn't understand what I was? The power swelled, and suddenly Sarah understood. This was what had been hidden all along. Not a lack of scent, but something so powerful it had to be suppressed, buried deep where no one, not even Sarah herself, could access it. Until now. Until the bond with Kieran had cracked open the prison that held her true nature captive. Sarah raised her hand, and every wolf in the temple felt it, the undeniable pull of an omega so powerful she could command without words, dominate without force. This was what Maven had sensed that first night. This was why the wolves had bowed to her. This was what the moon had been hiding for 23 years. "Submit," Sarah said quietly. The word carried absolute authority. Ilara's knees buckled. She fought it. Sarah could see the struggle on her face, but her omega instincts were no match for whatever Sarah had become. Slowly, inevitably, Ilara sank to the ground, her head bowing in submission. The challenge was over. The temple erupted in shocked whispers. Sarah stood in the center of the circle, power still thrumming through her veins, hardly able to believe what she'd just done. Maven Gray's eyes were bright with knowledge as she raised her voice. "The challenge is decided. Sarah Vale has proven her dominance. She is Luna of Valdrin by right and by might." The crowd parted as Kieran strode forward. His eyes were blazing amber, and the pride and desire in his gaze made Sarah catch her breath. When he reached her, he dropped to one knee in front of everyone assembled. "My Luna," he said, his voice carrying through the temple. "My mate, my queen." Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. This wasn't supposed to happen. She wasn't supposed to be powerful or special or anything other than broken. But as Kieran rose and pulled her into his arms, as she felt the bond between them singing with recognition and rightness, Sarah realized something fundamental had changed. She'd spent her whole life believing what others told her about herself, that she was defective, worthless, wrong. Now, for the first time, she was beginning to understand her own truth. The crowd dispersed slowly, their whispers following Sarah and Kieran as they left the temple. Ilara had vanished with her ironclad guards, and Sarah suspected Darius would hear about this failure before sunrise. "That was extraordinary," Torrin said as they reached their horses. "My king, I've never seen anything like it." The power she displayed was just the beginning, Kieran finished, his gaze fixed on Sarah. "Wasn't it?" Sarah nodded, still trying to process what had happened. "I felt something wake up inside me. Something that's always been there but buried so deep I never knew it existed." "Your mother's legacy," Kieran said softly. "Whatever bloodline she came from, it was powerful enough that it had to be hidden, even from you." "But why?" Sarah asked. "Why would my mother hide what I was?" "Protection." Maven Gray's voice came from behind them. The old Omega had followed them out, leaning on her walking stick. Your mother came to Ashenmere when you were just a babe, fleeing something terrible. She made me promise never to speak of what she truly was, never to reveal her bloodline. I kept that promise. Until now, when you need to know the truth. Sarah's pulse raced. What was she? Please, Maven. I need to know. Maven's expression was grave. She was Luna of the Silvermoon Pack, one of the most ancient and powerful bloodlines in all the Shifter territories, and she was running from an alpha who'd tried to claim her against her will. An alpha who would have used her power to conquer all of Valdren. The clearing seemed to tilt. My mother was royalty? More than that, Maven said. She was the last of the true lunar Omegas, born under the blood moon with power that comes once in a generation. When she disappeared, the Silver Moon Pack fell into chaos. Some say it was destroyed entirely. Kieran's hand tightened on Sarah's, and Sarah inherited that power. Diluted by human blood, hidden by her mother's final magic. But yes, Maven confirmed, the question is, who was the alpha your mother was running from? And what will happen when he learns her daughter has awakened? A chill ran down Sarah's spine. She'd gained so much tonight. Her power, her position, her truth. But with that truth came new dangers she couldn't yet comprehend. We'll deal with that when it comes, Kieran said firmly. Right now, we have a presentation to prepare for. The council meets in 3 days, and after tonight's display, I suspect they're going to have a lot of questions. As they rode back to Thornvale through the moonlit forest, Sarah felt the weight of her new reality settling over her. She wasn't just a rejected Omega anymore. She wasn't just Kieran's convenient mate. She was the daughter of a lost Luna, inheritor of an ancient power, and whether she was ready or not, she was about to step onto a stage that would decide the fate of the entire kingdom. The only question was whether she'd survive it. The journey to Starhaven took most of the day. This time, Sarah rode not in a rickety cart, but on a magnificent black stallion, wearing clothes befitting a Luna, a deep emerald gown that brought out the copper in her hair, with the silver moon crest of the Silverstone Pack embroidered at her shoulder. Kieran rode beside her, no longer hunched or limping. He sat tall and commanding in his saddle, dressed in the formal attire of the Alpha King, black leather and silver clasps, a fur-lined cloak that spoke of both power and ancient tradition. You're staring, Kieran said, amusement coloring his voice. I'm adjusting, Sarah replied. 5 days ago, you could barely walk. Now you look like you could lead an army into battle. I have led armies into battle. But that's a story for another time. Right now, we need to focus on the council. Torin rode ahead with a contingent of guards, the Silverstone banner flying high. As they approached the capital, Sarah could see crowds gathering along the roads, word having spread of the mysterious Luna who'd defeated Alara Voss. They're staring, Sarah murmured. They're curious. You're a mystery, Sarah. An Omega with no scent who commands like a born Luna. They've never seen anything like you. That makes 2 of us. The council chamber was a massive circular room carved from white stone, with high windows that let in streams of golden afternoon light. Around the perimeter sat the council members, 12 alphas representing the major packs of Valdren, each one radiating power and authority. And at the far end, standing rather than sitting, was Darius Crow. He was younger than Sarah expected, perhaps in his early 30s, with sharp features and cold gray eyes. His dark hair was pulled back severely, and he wore the black and red colors of the ironclad pack. When his gaze fixed on Sarah, she felt the full weight of his hostility. So, this is the Omega who thinks herself worthy of the crown, Darius said, his voice carrying easily across the chamber. She looks ordinary. Careful, Darius. Kieran's voice held a warning edge. That's your Luna you're insulting. Is she? Darius gestured to the assembled council. That's what we're here to determine, isn't it? Whether this arrangement of yours is legitimate or simply a desperate ploy to avoid the council's decree. One of the council members, an elderly alpha with silver hair, raised his hand. Alpha King Kiran, you were given 6 months to choose a suitable mate. Instead, you disappeared and returned with a rejected omega of unknown lineage, claiming a bond formed in a matter of days. You must understand our skepticism. I understand perfectly, Counselor Aldrich, Kiran said, which is why I'm prepared to prove the authenticity of our bond according to ancient law. The council members conferred quietly among themselves before Aldrich continued. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Darius's eyes narrowed. You would submit to the trials? We would, Kiran said, and Sarah felt his confidence flowing through their bond, steadying her. Aldrich leaned forward. The trials have not been invoked in over a century. They are demanding, both physically and emotionally. Are you certain, my king? I am, Kiran said firmly. My mate and I will prove our bond is true. Darius smiled, and there was nothing pleasant in it. Then, let the trials begin. The first trial was called the Test of Recognition. Sarah was led to one end of the chamber, blindfolded, while Kiran was positioned somewhere among a group of unmated alphas at the other end. The Luna must identify her mate by the bond alone, Aldrich explained. No sight, no scent, no sound. Only the connection between true mates will guide her. Sarah stood in darkness. She could hear movement, shuffling, the breathing of multiple alphas. But she felt Kiran, a warm, steady presence that called to her like a beacon. She walked forward confidently, weaving between the other alphas, until she stopped directly in front of that warmth. Here, she said, reaching out to touch his chest. This is my mate. When the blindfold was removed, she was looking directly into Kiran's amber eyes. The council murmured in approval. One trial passed, Aldrich said. But recognition can be learned with practice. The second trial will be more revealing. The test of truth required both mates to answer questions while the council watched for signs of deception. The questions started simple. When did you meet? Why did you choose each other? But quickly became more intimate. Do you love her? Aldrich asked Kiran bluntly. Kiran's eyes found Saraz across the chamber. I didn't think I could. I'd convinced myself that love was a luxury kings couldn't afford. But from the moment I saw her in that temple, fierce and unbroken despite everything she'd endured. Yes, I love her. Sarah's breath caught. He'd never said those words before. And you, Luna Sarah? Aldrich turned to her. Do you love him? Or did you accept his proposal simply to escape your rejection? Sarah could have lied, could have said what they wanted to hear, but the bond wouldn't let her. I accepted because I was desperate, she admitted. Because I thought anything was better than the shame of returning home unwanted. But somewhere between that temple and this moment, everything changed. He sees me, not what I lack, not what I should be, but who I actually am. And yes, I love him for it. The council chamber fell silent. Even Darius seemed momentarily taken aback by the raw honesty. 2 trials passed, Aldrich said softly, which brings us to the final test. The test of sacrifice was the most ancient and feared of all trials. Each mate was asked what they would give up for the other, and the bond would reveal if they spoke truth. Alpha King Kiran, Aldrich said, what would you sacrifice for this omega? Kiran stood, his voice ringing with absolute certainty. Everything. My crown, my pack, my very life. If the choice was between ruling Valdrin and keeping Sarah safe, I would walk away from the throne without hesitation. The council erupted in shocked whispers. An alpha king who would abandon his throne? It was unheard of. And you, Luna Sarah? What would you sacrifice? Sarah rose, feeling the weight of every eye upon her. My power. This gift I've only just discovered. If keeping it meant losing him, I would bury it again and live as a powerless Omega for the rest of my days. As she spoke, the air in the chamber seemed to shimmer. The bond between her and Kieran became visible. Golden threads of light that connected them, pulsing with power and truth. By the moon, someone whispered. I've never seen a bond so strong. Aldrich stood, his aged face showing wonder. The trials are complete. The bond between Alpha King Kieran and Luna Sarah is proven true and genuine. All who question it may see for themselves. This is a mating blessed by the moon herself. Darius stepped forward, his face twisted with fury. This proves nothing. She could be using magic to deceive. Enough. Kieran's voice cracked like thunder. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. You challenge my mate, you challenge me. And I grow tired of your constant undermining, Darius. If you wish to contest my right to rule, then do so directly. Challenge me for the crown, here and now, or accept the council's judgment and submit. The chamber fell deathly silent. A direct challenge for the crown meant combat to the death. Darius's hands clenched into fists, his face red with rage. For a moment, Sarah thought he would accept. But then his gaze shifted to her, and recognition flickered across his features. You, he breathed, staring at Sarah. Those eyes, that power. His expression shifted from rage to shock. Morgana, you're Morgana's daughter. The name made Sarah's blood run cold. Morgana, her mother's name, spoken by the man she'd been fleeing from. You knew my mother? Sarah demanded. Knew her? Darius laughed, a bitter, angry sound. I was betrothed to her. She was promised to me by the Silver Moon elders, but she ran rather than honor the agreement, and her cowardice led to the destruction of the Silver Moon pack. Maven's words came back to Sarah. An alpha who'd tried to claim her against her will. She wasn't a coward, Sarah said, her voice shaking with anger. She was running from you. She was mine by right, Darius snarled. And when she refused me, the pack fell into civil war. Hundreds died because of her selfishness. The Lunar Omega bloodline should have been mine. If I couldn't have the mother... His eyes glittered dangerously. Perhaps I'll settle for the daughter. Sarah Vale, Darius said, his voice cold and formal. I invoke the ancient law of blood debt. Your mother's betrayal cost the ironclad pack dearly. You owe restitution. Reject Kieran's claim and accept mine, or face me in combat to settle the debt. There is no blood debt, Aldrich said sharply. The Lunar Omega was never formally bonded to you, Darius. Your betrothal was an agreement between elders, not a mating recognized by the moon. Then I challenge her directly, Darius said. As is my right under pack law. Let her prove she's worthy of being Luna by defeating me in combat. You can't challenge an Omega to combat, Torin protested. That's forbidden. She's no ordinary Omega, is she? Darius smiled cruelly. She has the power of the lunar bloodline. That makes her fair game. Unless... she's afraid? Sarah felt Kieran tense beside her, felt his rage. He was about to refuse on her behalf, to fight Darius himself. But something in Sarah snapped. She was done being protected. Done being underestimated. Done letting men decide her fate. I accept, she said clearly. Sarah, no, Kieran began. I accept, she repeated louder. She turned to face Darius fully. You want to challenge me? Fine, let's finish this. But when I win, you will acknowledge Kieran as the rightful Alpha King, abandon your claim to any grievances, and never speak my mother's name again. Darius's smile widened. And when I win, you will reject Kieran's bond and submit to mine. The Lunar Omega bloodline will finally belong to the Ironclad Pack, as it always should have. No, Kieran said firmly. I won't allow this. It's not your choice, Sarah said gently, touching his face. She sent him everything she felt. Her love, her determination, her absolute certainty. Trust me. I can do this. Kieran searched her eyes, and she saw the moment he understood. This wasn't just about proving herself to the council. It was about reclaiming her power, her identity, her right to choose her own destiny. Tomorrow at dawn, Aldrich said heavily, the challenge will take place in the sacred arena. May the moon guide you both. Dawn broke cold and clear over Starhaven. The sacred arena was an ancient circle of standing stones, where pack challenges had been decided for 1,000 years. Hundreds of shifters had gathered to witness the battle. Sarah stood at one end of the circle wearing simple fighting leathers. Across from her, Darius stretched and paced like a caged predator, confident in his superior strength and experience. Last chance to submit, he called out. Reject the king's bond, accept mine, and we can end this peacefully. I'd rather fight, Sarah replied. Aldrich stepped into the center. This challenge is sanctioned under ancient law. Combat will continue until one party submits or is unable to continue. Killing is forbidden, but all other methods are permitted. Combatants may shift at will. Do you both understand? I understand, Darius said. I understand, Sarah echoed. Then let the challenge begin. Darius shifted immediately, his body rippling and reforming into a massive black wolf with red-tinted eyes. He was enormous, easily twice the size of a normal wolf, his jaws capable of crushing bone. Sarah stood frozen for a moment. She'd never consciously shifted before. Those dreams of running on 4 legs, they'd felt real. But she'd never done it while awake. She didn't even know if she could. Darius lunged and instinct took over. Power exploded through Sarah's body as her form changed. Instead of the painful transformation she'd expected, it felt natural, right? As if she was finally becoming what she was always meant to be. When the light faded, Sarah stood on 4 legs, her fur silver white like moonlight, her eyes glowing with ancient power. She was smaller than Darius but built for speed and agility. The crowd gasped. Even Darius hesitated, clearly not expecting her to shift at all. They circled each other. Darius feinted left, then struck right, his jaws snapping at her throat. Sarah dodged, her smaller size allowing her to slip under his attack. She raked her claws across his flank, drawing first blood. Darius roared in anger and charged. This time, he didn't hold back, using his superior weight to try to pin her. They collided in a tangle of fur and fangs, rolling across the arena floor. Sarah felt teeth sink into her shoulder and yelped in pain. She felt Kieran's answering rage, felt him fighting the urge to intervene. I've got this, she sent. Trust me. She twisted in Darius's grip and bit down hard on his foreleg. He released her with a snarl, limping slightly as they separated. They were more evenly matched than anyone had expected. Darius had strength and experience, but Sarah had something else. The lunar omega power that was finally, fully awake. The fight continued, brutal and exhausting. Sarah took hits that should have ended the battle, but each time she rose again, her power lending her strength beyond normal endurance. Darius, too, seemed unstoppable, his rage fueling him. As the sun climbed higher, both combatants began to tire. Sarah's movements grew slower, her dodges less precise. Darius pressed his advantage, driving her back toward the edge of the circle. I'm losing, Sarah realized with growing panic. He's too strong. She felt Kieran's voice. You're not fighting alone. Remember, we're bonded. Use it. And suddenly Sarah understood. The mate bond wasn't just emotional. For true mates, it could be a conduit of power. As Darius lunged for what he clearly thought would be the final blow, Sarah dropped her defenses and reached for Kieran. His strength flooded into her. his power combining with hers in a way that made them both more than they'd been separately. Sarah's eyes blazed with golden silver light. When she moved, it was with impossible speed, with strength that came from two bonded souls fighting as one. She met Darius mid-leap, their bodies colliding with earth-shaking force. But this time, Sarah didn't give ground. She used his momentum against him, twisting and throwing him across the arena. Darius crashed into one of the standing stones hard enough to crack the ancient rock. He struggled to his feet, dazed and bleeding. Sarah advanced slowly, her presence filling the arena with undeniable dominance. This was the power of a lunar Omega fully awakened, bonded to an Alpha King. "Submit," Sarah growled, the word coming out in a voice that was both wolf and human. Darius snarled and charged one last time, desperation overriding caution. Sarah didn't dodge. She met him head-on, and when their bodies collided, she drove him to the ground and pinned him there, her jaws at his throat. The arena fell into suspended silence. The crowd held its collective breath. Darius struggled, but Sarah's grip was unbreakable. "Submit," she repeated. Darius went still. Then, slowly, he exposed his throat fully, the ultimate sign of submission. "I submit," he said, his voice rough with defeat. Sarah released him and stepped back, shifting back to her human form. She stood in the center of the arena, breathing hard, covered in blood and dirt, but victorious. The crowd erupted in cheers. Aldrich stepped forward, his face showing amazement. "The challenge is decided. Luna Sarah has proven her strength and her right to stand as Queen of Valdrin." Kieran was suddenly there, pulling her into his arms, his hands running over her checking for injuries. "You're hurt." "I'm fine," Sarah said, leaning into him. "I'm perfect." "You're extraordinary," Kieran corrected, tilting her face up to his. "My extraordinary mate." He kissed her then in front of the entire assembled crowd, and Sarah felt the bond between them surge with power and joy and rightness. When they finally broke apart, Aldrich was smiling. "There is one final ceremony to complete. If you're both willing." "The claiming," Sarah said, understanding. "The formal, public claiming. To seal your bond before the kingdom and make it unbreakable by any law or challenge." Sarah looked at Kieran. "I'm willing." "As am I," Kieran said softly. After the crowd's cheers died down, Aldrich called for silence. The ceremony was brief, but powerful. Before the crowd of witnesses, Kieran knelt and bared his throat to Sarah, an alpha submitting to his omega, something almost never seen. "I offer myself to you," he said formally. "My strength, my pack, my throne, my life. All that I am is yours if you'll have it." Sarah's hands trembled as she placed them on either side of his face. "I accept your offer, and I offer myself in return, my loyalty, my power, my heart, my soul. All that I am is yours, now and always." She leaned down and placed her mark on his throat. A bite that would scar in the shape of a crescent moon, visible proof of their bond. Kieran gasped, his eyes flaring amber as their connection deepened beyond anything they'd felt before. Then Kieran stood and returned the gesture, his mark on Sarah's throat matching hers on his. The moment his teeth broke her skin, Sarah felt their souls truly merge. She could feel everything he felt, his love, his pride, his absolute devotion. And she knew he felt the same from her. When they pulled apart, matching marks gleaming on their throats, Aldrich raised his voice. "Before the assembled packs of Valdrin, I declare this bond complete and sacred. Kieran Ashford, Alpha King of the Silverstone Pack, and Sarah Vale, Lunar Omega of the Silver Moon bloodline, are mated for life. Let no one question their right to rule." The crowd roared its approval. Darius limped forward, his pride clearly wounded but his submission genuine. "I acknowledge the bond." And I withdraw all challenges to your rule, Alpha King. The ironclad pack will cause no further trouble. See that it doesn't, Kieran said. But know this, Darius. My mate has shown you mercy today. If you threaten her or our pack again, I won't be so generous. Darius nodded and retreated. 6 months later, the first snow of winter had just begun to fall over Thornvale Woods, dusting the trees with white and turning the clearing into something from a fairy tale. In the months since the challenge, Kieran had begun construction on a proper residence, a blend of the old cottage's rustic charm and the grandeur befitting an Alpha King's home. It sprawled across the clearing now, with multiple wings, a great hall for pack gatherings, and private quarters. But today, Sarah and Karan stood in the original cottage, in the small bedroom where Sarah had once locked herself away in fear. Hard to believe it's only been 6 months, Sarah said, looking out the window at the wolves playing in the snow below. Feels like a lifetime, Kieran agreed, wrapping his arms around her. A good lifetime. Sarah leaned back against his chest. Maven stopped by yesterday. She said the Silver Moon Pack survivors are beginning to return from exile. They want to swear loyalty to the Lunar Omega who restored their bloodline. What did you tell her? That I'd be honored to meet them. But that my loyalty is to Silverstone first. To you first. Kieran turned her in his arms. You know you don't have to choose, right? You can honor both bloodlines. Silverstone and Silvermoon can be united through you. Is that your way of saying you want me to take on even more responsibility? It's my way of saying you're strong enough to handle whatever you choose to take on. He kissed her forehead gently. But I won't lie. Having the Silvermoon Wolves ally with us would strengthen the kingdom considerably. Let him try something, Sarah said. I beat him once. I'll beat him again if I have to. Kieran laughed. There's my fierce Omega. I was worried being queen might soften you. Never, Sarah promised. She pulled him down for a proper kiss. When they broke apart, both slightly breathless, she smiled. Besides, someone has to keep you humble. A knock at the door interrupted them. Torin's voice carried through. My king, my Luna, the council has arrived for the winter solstice gathering. Sarah sighed. Duty calls. It can wait 5 more minutes, Kieran said, pulling her close again. I want to savor this. Just us, before we have to be king and queen again. Sarah nestled into his embrace, breathing in his scent, pine and winter frost and home. She could feel his contentment, his love, his absolute certainty that they belonged together. Thank you, she said softly. For what? For seeing me when I was invisible. For choosing me when no one else would. For loving me when I didn't know how to love myself. Kieran's arms tightened around her. I should be thanking you. You saved me, Sarah. From a loveless political marriage, from a crown that felt like a cage. You gave me something I never thought I'd have. A real partnership. A true mate. A home. Then we saved each other, Sarah said, tilting her face up to his. Yes, Kieran agreed, kissing her again. We did. Outside, the snow continued to fall, blanketing the world in white. Inside the cottage that had once sheltered a rejected Omega and a king in disguise, 2 souls who'd found each other against all odds prepared to face their kingdom together. The broken Omega and the crippled stranger. The Luna and the Alpha King, partners, mates, home, forever.